The mysterious Tarbagatai. Dozens of secrets and riddles surround this ridge separating Lake Alakol from the valley of Irtysh and the Kalba Altai. You can see the Altai Mountains from any hill on the Tarbagatai ridge, yet this is already southern Siberia. Here at the junction of zoogeographical zones, not only landscapes but also different types of fauna meet and converge. In the foothills, it's even possible to encounter pheasant, a representative of southern latitudes. And having ascended a little into the mountains, you can see tundra partridge. Here the Tian Shan mountainous coniferous forests meet the Siberian larch, forming the habitat for two bear subspecies, Tian Shan white-clawed and the common brown. The Outdoor KZ team has dreamt of visiting this amazing area for a long time, and the opportunity came at last, as participants of the International Wildlife Monitoring Expedition to the Tarbagatai and Saur. So we are flying out of Astana to Ust-Kamenogorsk and proceed on SUVs from there into the mountains. Damir Kamidulin, Chief Specialist of Eastern Kazakhstan Territorial Forestry and Wildlife Inspection, is a member of the expedition. Biologist Orken Shaimukanbetov coordinates the mission. Stefan Mikel, biologist and IUCN wild species survival expert, is the lead scientist. Aybat Muzbai is a young biologist and a GIS expert. Game manager Jalin Muratulu is tasked with guiding the expedition. The team is also lucky to have another member, Uncle Misha Kolmogorov, an experienced hunter, as our pathfinder. He knows the area from A to Z. The village of Akzharov, Tarbagatai district, is located about 400 kilometers from Ust-Kamenogorsk. To enter the border zone, one needs a special permit. In the village shop, we buy all the last-minute stuffs. Within the next week, the expedition will go autonomous and work in an absolutely deserted area. The snow line in the Tarbagatai fluctuates depending on the weather. Yesterday it snowed the whole day, so it went down. In the hollows of northern slopes, the wind has gathered huge snow piles, but we will try our luck. But it didn't work out and we got stuck. The truck is down in the snow up to its axle. We'll need to lift it with a jack and put some stones under it. It seems working. Let's try going around the drift over the slope. Hooray! We finally got through. Here and there, grey partridges and chukas fly up from beneath the wheels. Chukas or kekliks belong to the partridge subfamily, and it's easy to distinguish them from bearded or grey partridge by the dark lateral marks on the body sides. Their throat has a light spot with a white-black strip going to the eyes and forehead. Keklik's beak is red, and they have scully glasses around their eyes. Common partridge's top is brown with a transverse pattern, and the bottom is grey. Head sides, throat and lateral strips on the sides are red. Males also have a dark spot on their bellies. And this is tundra partridge. Although it's called a partridge, this bird belongs to the black grouse subfamily. Hazel grousers and wood grousers, and not partridges, are closer to them on the evolution tree. Plumage on the legs, the so-called trousers, is a distinct feature of all black grousers. This year was good and there are many baby birds in the broods. Scientists have not yet finalized their allegations of the fluctuations in the number of baby birds due to weather conditions, but this dependency is obvious. The birds possibly get some very detailed information on the genetic level about the world which they are about to hatch into. Roe deer prefer to keep in the foothills of the Tarbagatai along the overgrown river banks. Our SUVs simply cannot defeat all the snowdrifts we face. It looks like we will need to overnight in the deserted shepherd's cabin and hit the road on foot in the morning. In the summer, the Tarbagatai Midlands are full of distant pasture livestock operations. In September, the shepherds bring their herds down into the valley. Mountain sheep are not really fond of humans, dogs and cattle, and thus in summer they hide in the most hard-to-reach areas and occupy the vacant midland pastures in winter. We hope that the Argali are already here and we will be able to locate them within the one-day radius from the wintering site. At last we've arrived, but our home is buried beneath the snow. Shovel time! Let's dig our home out. Great hotel we have for tonight. Indeed, although there is a little too much snow inside. It's not that much warmer in the cabin than outside, so a part of the team has decided to spend the night in tents. We need to start the fire, but firewood is nowhere to be seen. No firewood around. We'll have to heat with dung. The good news is that we have enough of it for the whole winter. You can delay a war, but never a lunch. Stefan looks like he has something tasty. Here are a couple of pikes. It's very good fish. Pike is a predatory fish and it's very tasty. They live in Lake Zaisan. They sell them like this. Uncle Misha Kolmogorov is our pathfinder. During the Soviet time, he was a hunter here and hunted groundhogs. Uncle Misha, here on these rock paintings we see the ibex. I've also heard that snow leopards live in the Sawa Mountains. They told us that you are a living witness of the fact that snow leopards do live here, or at least did. It's true. The last time I saw one in 2000. 18 years ago. Yes, 18 years ago. Have never seen it since then. How did you see it? What were the circumstances? I was hunting in the mountains and accidentally saw it in the field glass on the other side of the gorge. It was climbing up the rocks. It was getting dark, but I saw it quite well. Had watched it for about 15 to 20 minutes. What about the ibex? No, don't recall any from that time. Which means snow leopard could also feed on mountain sheep. In their research, scientists often use polls and interviews of locals. One statement cannot be a reliable source of information, but statistically processed polling data can have a certain scientific value.
Каждую весну мы совместно с охотничьими хозяйствами СОПТ проводим учет.
Together with hunting farms, we carry out such wild animal counts every spring and then send the information to the committee. Today is the third day of our joint monitoring with the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. We are currently located in the Narin site of Tarbagatai district. In the morning, the group splits into two and goes on the route. We see some traces of ancient settlements which are obviously of the pre-Soviet time. People have been living in the Tarbagatai for thousands of years. Undoubtedly, the locals had always hunted wild animals, but they somehow managed not to cross the red critical line in their relations with the wild nature. The travelers that came to the Tarbagatai in the early and mid-20th century reported about large Argali populations. The shepherds hunted with simple shotguns, but had no SUVs, tactical night vision sights, heat visors, snowmobiles, four-wheelers or helicopters. The nature can withstand a moderate hunting pressure but has nothing to do but recede when the full power of modern technological progress falls upon it. Here and there we see the ruins of the Soviet-time farms and winterings. The desire to increase the indicators forced the district party leaders to boost the extensive livestock production, arrange farms and winterings even in places where it was economically inexpedient. The party management of the Soviet era appreciated only the economic usefulness of wild nature and tried to master each plot of land without reckoning with the environmental damage and the interests of the future generations. In those days, in the forestry field they used the term territory improvement, that basically referred to the construction of various artificial objects like arbors, fences or rugged concrete figures in the middle of virgin and pristine areas. At present, such improvements cause nothing but sneers among environmentalists. The team is heading to the west, towards the main watershed. We're recording our track with the GPS. In every place where the monitors encounter wild animals, they mark the coordinates, measure the azimuth and distance to the animal. They also take account of various additional factors like slope steepness, air temperature and wind direction. The hardest task is to identify an animal's sex and age from distance. The Midland pasture belt is behind, and the group reaches the plateau, a huge snow-covered, open and a truly wild space. Its size, greatness and dramatic beauty are astonishing. The government of Kazakhstan decided to preserve this beauty by establishing a national park on the western macro slope of the Tarbagatai ridge. The attitude to primitive nature has changed in many respects in recent years. The independent Kazakhstan announced its commitment to the course of green economy, application of renewable resources, and development of tourism. In the light of this course, rather big wild nature areas have acquired not only an aesthetic but also an economic value. What is wild nature? An abstract figure of speech or a beautiful poetic image? The law of certain countries defines wild nature as a clear legal term designating land undisturbed by economic activities intended for people deriving aesthetic pleasure from communicating with the nature. Wild nature areas differ from reserves and national parks because the so-called light forms of recreation like hunting, fishing and ecotourism are allowed there. Although any activity which can alter the landscape or the condition of flora and fauna are prohibited. It's not allowed to build roads or any kind of dwellings there or say move around on vehicles. Aldo Leopold, an outstanding environmentalist, game manager and writer, was the author of the idea of wild nature areas. When in the 30s of the last century he was calling for leaving a little bit of vacant land to wild animals, he was called the fifth column and the opponent of technological progress. Not so much time has passed since then, yet Aldo Leopold's ideas finally got into the minds and hearts of scientists, voters and lawmakers. Now his books are sold by millions. In 1964, the US adopted the Wild Nature Act, and in 1968, the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, forbidding construction of dams, conduits, drains, power plants, power lines on or along them. At present, 4.5% of the US territory has the status of wildlife zones. Other countries like Canada, Australia and Finland decided to follow the US lead and introduced wild nature zone regulations in their national legislations. It's important that around the globe, wild nature is increasingly becoming one of the main state symbols and a matter of national pride. In Europe, they have a highly developed and productive hunting economy, as well as an excellent network of nature reserves. Yet why the European hunters and deco-tourists are willing to pay big money for traveling to the countries where wild nature has remained in its natural and unchanged condition? The answer is simple, because in the densely populated Europe they had changed animal habitats already 100 years ago. Their current magnificent hunting grounds and parks represent a synthesized nature. In essence, they are all merely farms for cultivating game animals. But people still long for the true and primitive wilderness, and this creates good conditions for advancing nature tourism.
Я являюсь членом комиссии по выживанию видов Международного союза охраны.
I am a member of the Species Survival Commission of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Several years ago, our commission has formulated the official IUCN's position on wildlife use, including rare and red-listed species. If hunting gives an incentive, provides means and opportunities, and promotes preservation of a given species, in general it's welcomed. In many cases, such moderate and sustainable use gives more preservation opportunities than the total ban would. Argalis start appearing on the way of the expedition with adult males prevailing in the groups. The mating season has not yet started, but the animals are already gathering in mixed herds. They mostly keep to the rocky slopes. Animal behavior is similar to economy, and the principle of recoupment works here too. Each wild animal is capable of instinctively assessing risks and energy consumption and comparing them against potential benefits. For example, a satiated wolf will never attack an adult boar with sharp canines, but if it is threatened with starvation, it will be forced to take the risk. Plateaus with alpine and steppe meadows, rich with bean plants, represent typical Argali habitats. If these pastures are occupied by farm animals, strong adult males go to remote mountainous locations with lacerated rocky gorges. Females with young calves have to choose between either remaining on large pastures near people or leaving to the highlands and subjecting their calves to the threat of dying with hunger or overcooling. In many respects, animal behavior depends on this of the humans. When animals are not pursued and there is no poaching, they get used to humans and can graze near farm cattle. However, in this case there is the danger of transfer of infectious diseases from farm to wild animals. In places where humans pursue the Argali, females with young offspring usually leave for non-suitable habitats, which in its turn changes the herd's sex and age composition. With time, it can lead to population degradation. Properly operating hunting farms should take all these factors into account.
Мы сейчас закончили второй этап учета горных баранов, ахаров в Казахстане.
We are now finished with the second phase of Argali monitoring. We are on the premises of a hunting farm in the Tarbagatai mountains. We saw over 100 Argali here, including a lot of adult and senior males, 8 to 10 and more years of age. We also found some females with this year calves who have survived until winter. We hope that later on they will also give posterity. The condition of the local population is rather good, although of course there is a need to enhance protection and to explain to shepherds how to do cattle breeding so it doesn't hurt the Argali or worsens their living conditions. We saw many old males here.
Мы здесь видим, что большое количество старых самцов.
In the course of 1 week, the expedition needs to survey over 100,000 hectares of land, which is a lot, and thus we need to hurry. We plan to spend the night at the ranger's cordon at the confluence of the Tebeske and Akgel, but he had left to the village and so will need to overnight in tents once again. The river is famous for its great Osman or mountain trout, It would be nice to diversify our marching diet a little, but we unfortunately did not take any fishing gear with us. We found some ibex images on the rocks along the river. These places do seem typical for them, but the issue is that even the old men have never seen the ibex here. Yet another Tarbagatai's riddle. It might be that they'd left the area already in antiquity. Two mountain massives of Jaxi and Jaman Arganti are located in the foothills of the Tarbagatai, in the middle of the wide valley. In Kazakh, Jaxi means good and Jaman means bad. At the entrance to the Jaxi Arganati, we encounter a female argali with a calf of this year. A small herd of argali lives in the massive and requires special protection. Visually, the Jaman Arganti massive doesn't differ that much from Jaxi Arganati, but there are no argali there. It might be because of the different fodder grass. In the northeast, the Tarbagatai links with the Manirak, Saur and Saikan regions. As a matter of fact, it is a single mountain chain, although the landscapes differ considerably, whereas Manirak is mostly occupied by steppe mountains deprived of vegetation. Saur and Saikan have a lot of large woods. There are no roads on the most part of these ridges, therefore the researchers leave their vehicles at the Tabagan camp and proceed on horseback. In summer in the mountains, you can conveniently go on horseback for a long time. In winter, horses can go on the soiling food for not more than 3 to 4 days.
Вот мониторинговая группа выезжает на маршрут.
Our monitoring mission is leaving. We will split into 2 groups and will cover about 40 kilometers for the 2 of us. In the mountains, the weather spoils unexpectedly. Fresh snow can be slippery, especially on grassy slopes. Perhaps in such weather it's better to put up a tent and give horses some time to rest. It has been snowing for 2 days already. Visibility is poor. One can encounter an animal if only by accident. A group of morals is grazing near the deserted lodge. 3 females, a young male and 2 calves. The morals have finished their mating season about a month ago, so now big adult males stay separately from the rest. They don't move too much, recovering from the rutting. In such weather, even the worst hut with a smoking oven is better than the best tent. For the night, the team is settling in a half-broken hunter's hut. It looks like nobody had lived here for quite some time. In the morning, the weather changes for the better, and so does our mood. When after the 3 days of snowstorms and blizzards at last the sun looked out, I began to understand why ancient people worshipped the sun. After snowfall, the mountain air is especially transparent. It looks like today is going to be much more productive than yesterday. Having accumulated a lot of hunger during the snowstorm, the animals are active. Not that much time has passed since morning, but the slopes are already lined with tracks. Male argali tirelessly move across the slopes looking for a free group of females. But competitors are all over the place and will not give up their harem without a fight. If a male is not really self-confident, it will continue its search, hoping to get lucky somewhere else. Large and mighty animals prefer to assert their rights in a duel. Evolution has supplied the rams with massive horns. The larger the horns, the higher the social status that the male occupies, and the higher chances it has to leave its genes behind. Yet the older the male and the more it is engaged in rutting, the fewer chances it has of surviving through the next winter. Exhausted old males are first victims of wolves and other predators. And this is the cruel wisdom of the nature. In due time, everybody has to give way to the young. Orkan is trying to creep up to an argali male for a good image. The animal notices the movement in different time it would have escaped long ago. But now the hormonal stress dulls the self-protection instinct. What if it's a nice and willing female? Somebody else is watching the argali from behind the rock. No way, it's a lynx. An adult argali is too big of prey for lynx, but a 6-month-old lamb is just right. It's safe as long as it's under the protection of the herd, although the lynx is patient and will wait as long as needed. Lynx feed on rodents, small birds, roe deer and juvenile argali. The group is taking a nice position convenient for observation on the edge of the plateau. From above, an excellent panorama opens up. You can see the whole valley through the field glass. Morals have finished their mating season already in early October. By now, the adult males have formed the bachelor pool. Females with calves keep separately. In the afternoon, morals disappear in the forest thickets, but in the morning and evening they come out to graze on the alpine meadows. 8 adult males in the herd is a great indicator. It means that the population is safe and stable. The boars, on the contrary, are still rutting. At present, every herd is headed by a furious adult razorback. Under its protection, females and piglets have nothing to fear. Even a pack of wolves will not risk attacking an experienced boar armed with razor-sharp canines. Tuskers are extremely furious, especially during rutting, and you should not tempt your destiny by coming close to it. Usually, if boars notice humans, they escape, but the surprise factor may play a dirty trick. Having unexpectedly bumped into a human at a short distance, the boar can instinctively attack the uninvited guest. The charming desertedness of the tucked-away corners of the southward Tarbagatai mountain system, its dramatic beauty and rich fauna bring a traveler into a special spiritual condition. You feel neither fear nor fatigue, only delight. In the course of 2 weeks, we have seen so much beauty and miracles that the impressions and recollections will be enough for the rest of our lives. Not every traveler is lucky to visit these wild and gorgeous locations. We also need to leave, as we still need to process and map the obtained data. In this small provincial hotel, it's nice to take a shower and have some rest, at last. After a short break, while the memories are still fresh, we need to decipher the field records and write the preliminary report.
Мы заранее заготавливаем вот такие журналы, полевые.
We prepare such field logs in advance, with codes and all the data fields which we'll need to collect during the monitoring. We record all encounters with a manual navigator and write down all the information in these logs. Afterwards, we transfer it to GIS experts for processing. IBAT here, for example, represents the new technological component of our field research.
Новые технологии в исследованиях животного мира.
Я использую программу Quantum GIS. Данная программа.
I use the Quantum GIS software, which allows me to process huge volumes of data simultaneously, including on animal species, slope steepness, soil, vegetation, distance, visibility and wind direction. It's important to use the generally accepted terms and designations during the research. We are members of the International Expert Working Group. Unification allows all other specialists, including foreign ones, to use our data. The mission to the Tarbagatai Mountains has excited our film crew so much that we decided to repeat our journey in the spring. When the alpine meadows and the Tarbagatai hills will get covered with bright colors, migratory birds will come back, groundhogs and bears will get out of their dens, and the rivers will be full with nice and fat trout.